I'm sitting here once again with Brihat, and there's several people that are doing an overview of the Bhagavad Gita. So we were going to ask Brihat to take us through his experience of the Bhagavad Gita in a way that is applicable to a 200-hour yoga course. So, where would you like to start?
Well, perhaps we should just set the scene for the Bhagavad Gita so we understand like the background where the conversation is taking place. So Bhagavad Gita literally means song of God.
Literally
Bhagavad
means son of God.
song,
Song of God.
yes.
Ah.
Yeah, because Sanskrit is a language which is sung, it's not spoken. And so Bhagavat, actually, or Bhagavan, it means it's a Sanskrit word for God or Supreme, and Gita means song. So the context of it, which is basically the first chapter, which is setting that whole scene, is that there's been, and it's this whole, okay, the Bhagavad Gita is a chapter in a larger story called the Mahabharata, which is a really incredible story.
Which is more or less, I've heard it, the Mahabharat is the story of India. Is that what it's?
It's a great epic, yeah.
Yes.
And so basically, the Bhagavad Gita is at one of the key points, is like at the climax of that story. And in the story, what happened was that there was a family who were basically the rulers of the planet, and then there was some disputes where the rightful heirs were betrayed, and then the throne was stolen, and then there was a war that happened. And there were many things which preceded that, but now this is the point where it's coming, where this war is just about to start. And therefore the Bhagavad Gita, this famous picture is shown where Krishna and Arjuna are sitting on this chariot with the horses amidst, in the middle of these two massive armies which are about to fight. And so what happens is that before the war takes place, Arjuna, who is the one person who the Bhagavad Gita has been spoken to, and one of the very key players on one of the in the story, he tells Krishna, who's driving his chariot, take me between the two armies. I want to see. I want to see what's up. I want to see who am I going to fight and who's on my side. And while he's looking at who he's about to kill, he's seeing his friends, his cousins, his relatives, his teachers, his gurus. And basically he becomes really overwhelmed with emotion. And he tells Krishna, I can't fight. How can I kill these people? And he gives all these reasons why. He quotes some moral reasons. He quotes some reasons like, if we're going to go through with this, the elders are going to be killed, and then the whole culture will be spoiled, and a number of other things. So then, and then when Krishna responds, he actually takes that opportunity to deliver the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita, which are the basic spiritual fundamental principles of any spiritual path, really, because they're universal principles. And for example, the very first lesson that Krishna gives is that we're all eternally spiritual beings, separate from this mind and this body, and the soul cannot be killed. And so one verse, which in Sanskrit he says, Dehi nosmin yata dehe kalmaram yovanam jara tata dehantara praptir dhiras tatra namuhyati, which means that the embodied soul in this life actually transmigrates between different bodies, because he transmigrates from the body of a little boy to a youth to an old man, and then at death, similarly, there's another change of body where another garment is being put on. And but a sober person, somebody who's actually sees with spiritual vision, they don't become bewildered by such a change. Death is just another transition.
How I'd like to juxtapose, I like to compare all the yoga teachings with the similarities in other teachings. And with the Course in Miracles, how they say this is life is infinite and eternal. So your life never ends. And also it asks the question, are you a human being with a spiritual experience, or are you a spiritual being with a human experience? And obviously the latter is what becomes obvious, and is certainly my truth. Okay, keep going.
Yeah. So then in that second chapter, it's more or less a summary of all the contents we will find in the Bhagavad Gita. So it starts with these key understandings which one has to take with one in whatever process of yoga one is going to pursue. That one is a spiritual being, and that one's experience of this world is happening through the agent of the mind, and this is where duality originates from, and that all this happiness and suffering that we're experiencing is actually just a concoction of the mind, because the soul is which is called Satchit Ananda. The soul possesses a form which is eternal and full of knowledge and bliss.
Yes.
So, and anything that is not that is actually just due to identification with the mind and the body. So, this is a fundamental yoga principles. So then in the first 6 chapters of the Bhagavad Gita, or rather from chapter like 3 to 6, it's more describing like the karma yoga process. Like in another talk, we described the whole yoga ladder. And then, so here we're getting more into the karma yoga, and how one dovetails one's activities in the Supreme, how one is performing one's duty which is given to one, according to one's nature, which is also according to one's karma from previous lives.
Yes.
So whether one is like a man or a woman, or one is like high class or low class or these things, there's a particular duty that one has to perform. But then it also gives this perspective, regardless of whatever position one is born into, one is first and foremost a spiritual being. And on that platform we're all equal. But
Yes.
although we're born into different conditions, we also have to perform those duties as well, but with a spiritual understanding. So we still don't identify with these things.
Yes. Like the caste system, for example.
Exactly. Originally, the caste system was like that, where everybody understood nobody is more than the next, because we're all spiritual beings, but yet we have these different bodies and different roles to play in the lives that we've been awarded. So we need to live up to those roles that we should be playing. But it's not an artificial thing, it's really a natural expression of a person's individual nature.
Allowing your human experience and allowing your fate, I guess, is a way to say that.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And then the middle 6 chapters is more directly focusing on devotion itself, and where one is engaging all one's energy as an offering of love to the divine, which is more emphasizing on bhakti yoga.
Okay.
And then the last 6 chapters is more pertaining to Gyan yoga, which is more philosophical information about how this universe works, what is the difference between the material and the spiritual universe, and where are we right now. Not just we spiritual beings, but then one will ask, okay, but what is this place actually? Why are things the way they are?
So
Why is the duality?
So the 6 to 9, I think you said, is about bhakti yoga and about devotion.
Yeah, 6 to 12, 7 to 12.
7 to 12. It's about bhakti yoga or devotion.
Yeah.
And knowing that you, knowing your divinity, and giving it as a gift back to creation, giving your actions as a gift. And then the last 3 are more understanding of how the universe works and what's the purpose of being here. Okay.
Which is the last 6, so it's 18 chapter 666. It's divided like that.
Okay.
And for example, in the 14th chapter, I believe it is it, or the 15th? They're describing this banyan tree. And for those who don't know what a banyan tree is, it's a really incredible tree that from a tiny little seed, this massive tree grows out, and when the branches extend, they start going down. And where the branches touch the ground, they shoot roots.
Okay.
And from there, a new trunk comes out. And in that way, a whole forest can consist of a single tree. So, like in Stellenbosch, there's a banyan tree right in front of the administration building. There's 4 or 5 trees around there. They're all banyans. And in Cape Town, there's also a banyan tree somewhere I saw. And also because of its significance, the Vedic or the Hindu people, in India, they worship the banyan tree. It's a worshipable tree. They circumambulate it. So it's described that there's this tree, but the roots are growing upwards and the branches are growing downwards. So they're describing this upside down tree as a way of depicting the material universe, and how they say how different parts of these trees represent the Vedas, they represent ritualistic activities, they represent karma. But ultimately they say that this tree, it's not possible to really find the source of it, but with a weapon of detachment one has to hack at it. And then at the end it's completing this picture by saying that this upside down tree is actually just a reflection of the original spirituality on the water of the material energy. And because we're now currently situated in the material energy, we're seeing an upside down version. It's a perverted reflection of the original spiritual reality.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a good analogy where people feel like that. I'll give my example of that would be that all human beings have an experience of not being good enough. That they have what Bashar would call the channelings of Bashar, where he calls our human experience, certainly society today, are the masters of lack. And the contents of our inner dialogue, what we get triggered by and what is automated is what's wrong with me, what's wrong with them, what's wrong with it, and all the reasons why it won't work out, is what we have to deal with on a daily basis. And that's kind of the upside down reflection of when what you truly are is divinity and connected to everything as an individual, with an individual experience. Is that a good example of what that upside downness is?
It is. We are having a improper understanding of the perverted reflection. So it's like, double illusion.
Aha.
Yeah.
So yes.
So first, and there's what's called Maya. Maya means illusion, but Maya also means not this, or not what it appears to be. So in the yoga schools, they see this whole universe as Maya, and the Maya is that we think has a different purpose than what its purpose actually is.
Yes.
And it's like this body, every part of the body, the purpose is to serve the whole.
Yes.
So in the same way, every part of this universe, and even beyond this universe in the spiritual reality and the spiritual dimensions, every single element is meant to be connected in unity to the divine, into the complete wholeness. And in that way, so that's what service means. Service out of love, not service out of you being paid and now you're a servant of somebody. It's an expression of love. So when we try to engage this energy for something other than service to the divine, that's when the crap happens. That's when the problem is, and that is Maya, because we think the purpose is to make me happy.
Yeah, we're so separate.
Yes.
People generally don't have an experience of being connected to everything. So the only experience they have is an experience of a separated personality. And that's where they behave from.
Yeah. Like sometimes when I meet people, then I ask them like, why did God make this world for? And then people from certain religious denominations, they reply that God made this world for us to enjoy. And then my response is, then why aren't you enjoying it? If God made this world for us to enjoy.
Yes.
And that's it. It's not meant for us to enjoy.
Uh-huh.
It's not. That doesn't mean we're not supposed to enjoy. But this world is not meant for us to lord it over. It's not meant for us to become the masters of.
True.
And to control it. It's meant for us to take care of, and to engage in the loving service to God, to the Supreme. And in that way, we get our enjoyment. We get full satisfaction. We get everything that we need. So it's a very subtle difference. So it's not the problem.
But it changes everything.
The problem is not enjoyment, but it's the means by which we try to attain happiness, which cannot be found in this world. But when one engages this world in a divine way, then your happiness is derived from the divine.
Instead of being masters of the world and seeing ourselves separate from, we really see ourselves separate from the animals and separate from everything, and that we are the masters of it, as opposed to being the stewards of the planet and seeing the divinity in everything and virtually being devoted to taking care of it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's a really mature, spiritual perspective to act on. So one can understand it, but to actually apply it that's another ballgame entirely.
Well, yeah, especially there's so much, anybody that's normally integrated into this Western society is that you need to work and you need to make money and you need to, I don't remember what you said earlier, but, you said it very nicely, but the example I'm going to give is that because people think that there's something inherently wrong with them, and then instead of approaching that directly, they ignore that, and then they try and go get things outside of themselves to prove that they are worthy, whether that's status, money, the right husband, the right wife, the right looking kids, the right looking life, all of these things outside of themselves, cars and houses and clothing, all of these things can be taken away from you. And if that's what you're putting your worth on, it's on things that are transient. There are things that aren't, that if they can all be taken away from you, no wonder people are devastated to the marrow when that they've decided their worth is based on something outside of themselves and then it's taken away.
Exactly.
Okay, so what are we at the end of the, what is the ultimate conclusion of the Bhagavad Gita? What is that?
Well, the ultimate conclusion is given in the last few verses of the 18th chapter, which he says, Sarva dharman prityaja mamekam sharanam vraja aham tvam savapapijo mokshayashami ma suchaha. It means,
Well, before you go on, he just did that from memory, just so you know. That wasn't, he's not reading anything.
it means that that one should abandon all kinds of dharma. So dharma is well, we can have a whole conversation, a number of conversations on just that word, but I like the translation a lot, which means occupational duties, because that one can apply on different levels. So one has the occupational duty, for example, as a man, as a woman, as a father, as a wife, as a son, as a mother, as a husband. Have I covered all? Yeah. And then depending on how you situate yourself in society, you have occupational duties towards society. Like for example, I've been a monk for the last 6 years, so I had a specific responsibility to society. And now that I'm also changing more into the world, kind of giving up my monkhood, so now my occupational duties will change. So these are all called, specifically they're called swadharma, which means they're temporary little dharmas according to time, place and circumstances which are given to us. So then,
Define dharma for me in that context.
so occupational duty. And then you have what's called sanatan dharma, which means it's the eternal occupation of the soul, which is one of loving service towards the divine, and that never goes away.
And being, the way that I talk about dharma is virtually your light. Who you truly are is your true expression. If you're connected to everything, is that's your dharma.
Yeah.
That's your
That would-
natural
yes.
way of being. If you're aligned with everything that is, and
So
if you're
that would be
aligned
the
with
sanatan dharma specifically.
Okay.
Because the different types
That's
of
the way I
dharma.
talk about it.
Yeah. But it's
Okay.
fun actually, because that's a higher principle.
Okay.
And if you're acting on sanatan dharma, you can actually give up all other kinds of dharma, which is what Krishna is saying here.
Yes.
That just give up all these kinds of dharma and just surrender unto me.
Yes.
And if you just act on this highest principle, you don't need to worry about anything else. And then somebody might ask, but what about, I have to purify myself, I have to get rid of all my karma and these things. And Krishna says that, don't worry about that, I will sort that out. If you simply just act purely on the spiritual platform, you will get everything you need.
And that you
And
can
you'll be sorted. And also besides that, you will also attain perfection. Not just that your body will get sustained or whatever, but you will attain spiritual perfection too.
The way I look at that is that, the shortest distance between where you are and where you're going, and there was a time where we had to walk and we had to put our feet on every stride from here to there, A to B. But then we got to vehicles, or horses, and then vehicles, and heaven forbid if we ever teleport. And it's just a faster way to the end result. And you really get to choose how you want to get there. And him talking about that, the more that you understand about what the path is, and then you can choose what the fastest way from A to B is. You can really choose to go to the end if that's what you choose to do. It's not what everybody does.
Exactly.
Okay, so
But now I must just give a disclaimer, because some people might misuse this verse. For example, somebody, let's say a guy and a girl, and they get pregnant and the child is there, and then the guy hears this and he says, all right, I can just surrender, I do not have to follow my duties towards my new child now, and I can just leave the woman behind because now I'm acting on this higher principle, so I'm relieved from my duties now. So actually that is not the proper application of this verse. The proper application would be that you do what you got to do. So you take care of this kid and this woman now that you made this child with, but you're completely detached, understanding this is not my child, this is not my wife, because they don't belong to me. They're spiritual beings eternally, and these bodies are just in relation to my body, but neither of us are our bodies. And in that way you're acting on this higher principle.
But I still have dharma. I still have dharma in this situation, and even if you're taking on a higher dharma, you're still
going to be responsible.
Yes.
You're not going to be, actually, if you would give up that means you're not acting on the higher platform.
Yeah.
Because now your duty is actually to spiritually liberate them also.
Yes. And also another paradox as well.
Yeah, exactly.
You've got to accept the paradox.
Yes. So I'll say that, and then actually in the next verse or two, then there's another statement which also ties into this, where it's also described, which the 18th chapter is really talking about the perfection of renunciation. And it says, Mai sanyasya matparaha, matchita matkata prana, bhuti yoga upashritam, bhakti yoga in the sevate. I think it's like that. I don't know if I messed it up a bit. But anyway, the point is that saying that when one is fully dependent on the Supreme, then that is called renunciation. Like when one lives in such a way, fully depending on the Supreme for sustenance, for one's spiritual purification and elevation, then that is actually renunciation. And it's called Buddhi Yoga. It's the intelligent yoga. Buddhi means intelligent. And one's actually intelligently acting. So this kind of renunciation means that one is doing what one does, but one is not in anxiety about success and failure. One is not in anxiety about whether I'll get what I need or I don't. If I get nothing, then that's fine. It's what I need. If I get something, then that's great. It's what I need. And in that way, I guess, in a different way, I could say that you're living and depending on synchronicities. And you're just like connecting to the divine and just having faith that by synchronicity, I will get what I need.
Yes.
I don't need to have any anxiety about that. I can just focus entirely on just connecting myself to the divine, and then also assisting others in their path in connecting to the divine. And I don't need to think about anything else because it will come. So that's renunciation.
Okay, and that's just full belief. So you're not trying to get anywhere.
No.
There's things that you need to do in life. So there's some action. You are focusing on your beingness the entire time that you're doing it. You're not concerned about achieving something or being somebody. You're just doing what there is for you to do.
Yeah.
And
as it comes naturally.
Being grateful for what comes your way and the synchronicity of what you're looking to attract, if it's sustenance, and that's virtually what there is to do. Is also in keeping the highest job is being able to recognize the divine in every moment and molecule that you're moving, and being able to help others be able to see the same level of divinity.
Yes. Like there's a personality called Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and he established the Gaudiya Math in India.
Which is what?
In the beginning of the 1900s, which is basically like a number of temples, which were teaching these fundamental principles of Bhagavad Gita, and based on these principles of Bhagavad Gita and Bhakti Yoga. And he was an incredible personality, and he dedicated himself to chanting. He took a vow to chant 1 billion names of God. So there's this mantra. He was particularly chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, and he would chant about what was it, 3 lakhs every day, which is 300,000 names a day, which would take about between, like if we were to do it, it would take 24 hours to chant about.
Wow.
But he probably completed it in about 18 hours or so. So every day he had this little pandoki, they call it bhajan kutir, which is basically, it's barely enough just to sit inside and have a roof over their head.
Okay.
And if there was a leak, he'd just like take an umbrella and he'd just like continue chanting his rounds. And he completed this vow in I don't know, maybe 6, 7 or 8 years. And so he was living like a Babaji, and he had long hair and dreads and this whole thing. And after he completed this vow, and he also had a lot of disciples, he shaved up, he put on a suit, he climbed into one of his disciples' Rolls Royce, and he went to the Babajis to go and teach them what renunciation means.
Wow.
Quite interesting, because he was saying that you are just sitting here taking care of yourself. What about the rest of the world? Now I'm so renounced. Oh, that's not what he said, but just by his actions, like the lesson that I was getting from it is that he was so renounced that he was willing to give up his own comfort in the holy place so that he could reach out to others and assist other people in their awakening.
Okay,
So, and
this,
that's real renunciation.
what was this man's name again?
Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur.
And he did 18 hours of chanting a day of Krishna.
Yeah, it's just my estimation. Could be like 18
okay.
hours, yeah. But yeah.
So 300,000 times a day.
Yeah.
And then he reached 1 billion in 8 or 9 years.
Somewhere along that time, yeah.
Wow.
Every
day.
Yes, every
Wow.
day.
Okay, and then he got in a suit, shaved his head, and got in a what kind of car?
Rolls Royce.
A Rolls Royce. And,
of all cars, like a Bentley.
Yes.
Like
and went to go speak to the other.
the Babajis, the renunciants.
Yes, to be able to talk about.
To teach them what renunciation means.
Uh-huh.
In a Bentley and a suit.
That's rather interesting.
Mm.
Okay. Anything else about the Bhagavad Gita that's in broad strokes that you'd like to cover?
I just reiterate that main theme of it, which is surrender to the Supreme, which is where we really depend less on our own little potencies, and that our actual potency is fully realized when we surrender to the Supreme. So we are incredibly powerful beings, but that potency is only accessed and realized when one is connected to the divinity. So it's also a bit of a contradiction. It's like by stopping to rely on yourself, you actually manifest your own power. But by actually trying to, because when you see yourself separate from everything and then you try to manifest, you do nothing. You have very little potency. But when you give that up, which is more an ego expression of it, and then you connect to the divinity, and through that desire to serve the divinity, then manifest that potency, then it really awakens, and then that spiritual energy manifests in your life,
Yeah, because
and
it's
in
not
everybody
yours.
else's life. It's not ours.
Yeah, the way they talk about that in the Course in Miracles is the little willingness. Is that having the little willingness to be able to give over to creation is where the power actually is, for the greatness of everything is that everything is. So I like that they keep coming up with these similarities. I like that.
Yeah.
Is there the reason why I come up with the Course in Miracles? It's my teachings. It's the place that I learned about, the first place that I learned about non-duality. And synchronicities, and knowing truly what I am as to that's more aligned with who I truly am.
They're universal principles. So in any authentic spiritual discussion or forum, you're going to see the same principles manifest.
Yes, because there's only one truth.
Exactly.
And that's why all the disciplines, transformational disciplines, speak about the same things. They have different practices, they have different words, but ultimately, if it's worth its salt, they're talking about the same distinctions. And some of them are better at certain ones than others, maybe, but they're all talking about the same things.
I like that too.
Thank you very much once again, Riyaz. The Bhagavad Gita.